this guy is still with Omaki. Then yeah, I'm going to make some assumptions that you have already installed PHP, but if you haven't, we're going to talk about the different options that you have regarding installing PHP. At any point you have any questions, pop your hands up and just chat through. It's very it's a community-based learning, so there's some points I make that really doesn't push it forward. Draw my attention, and then we'll just discuss on it. Okay, beautiful. So setting up your first PHP project begins with the very essentials, which happens to be PHP itself. So if we're going to be starting out a PHP project, we must first of all have PHP installed on our machine, our bare metal, whatever we use to access the internet, whatever we use to write codes, we must have it. The recommended range is between PHP 7.4 for most of it, through to the most recent PHP 8.5. Anything below 7.4 falls out of range. I mean, in recent times, people are not really fancying the 7.x range anymore. Maybe just let's go the 8.0 above, just to stay in a security conscious release level. Beautiful. So the next thing we need is Composer. For the beginning, you might not need Composer, but it's a worthy mention, since for most of what we do is writing codes and also reusing these codes. Every person that writes codes will tell you that you should always reuse. You hear something like, don't reinvent the wheel. Like if something has been done already, don't try to do it again, just use it. And we have the concept of open source, where people write very serious codes and share it for free for us to use in a day-to-day work environment, etc., etc. But I mean, use wisely. So Composer is the tool that helps us pull in other people's work, other people's codes in a way, and then use it with what we have, and it integrates smoothly with our current setup, current application. We're going to have a bit of look at it much later in the session. Then you also need to have a code editor, preferably PHP Storm, but I do know that that's a paid product. It's a licensed product. So you can also use VS Code. You can also use VS Code. If you can afford $9 a month, I would really recommend using PHP Storm. It's really, really powerful. But without that, you can use VS Code. We used to have Sublime Text. I don't know what happened. We used to have Atom. I really don't know what happened, but I think VS Code just stuck on for a very long time. Now, that's the essentials that we need. We move into the different OSs that we have that runs PHP. Now, if you're running a Windows operating system, you might come across something called XAMPP. Okay, so you might hear about something called XAMPP, Apache, MariaDB, PHP, Perl. So installing this application on your Windows system gives you access to the full suite of what you need to run a PHP development environment. This is for Windows. Then we also have another called MAMP. Yeah, we also have this. It's something, an alternative for, we love alternatives. So if you're not using XAMPP, you use MAMP, but I really prefer XAMPP. I do. Okay, so we have XAMPP, we have MAMP. Then those are mostly framework agnostic. XAMPP itself and MAMP, forgive any urban noise maybe here, please. Then we have things that are more specific to a particular framework. Example, Laragon. We have Laragon Head. It's a development environment for Laragon. You install it once and then you're good for everything Laravel. I haven't used it for things outside of Laravel, so I'm not really sure if it works outside Laravel. Yeah, this is it. Laravel development perfected. It gives you access to mail. to DOM, log viewers. You can run Nginx. You can easily switch between environments like PHP 8.3, 8.4, 8.2, etc., etc., etc. You can bring in Redis. Most of the stuff, it has a paywall. It also has the free side. So for the free side would work well enough for whatever low-level stuff you're doing. So you can check it out. Then we also have Laragon. I haven't used Laragon much, but I heard about it when I was starting out development. All these links would be available. You could just ask in the group, and or you could just Google them up. Right now, I'm just googling it up. The name is just what is important for you to pay attention to. Laragon is built to support activity, modern XAMPP, product alternative, blah, blah, blah. There's just so much. You can pick one, but if I'm to give my opinion, I'll say you stick to XAMPP if you're just exploring PHP generally, or you could go with Laragon. Those two just ticks it for me. Then Linux. If you're running Linux, then it means you're trying to get more power out of your machine. You're doing a lot of things by yourself, and the command line is your best friend. So in this case, what you can use is the PHP development server. You can use PHP development server, which PHP-S localhost, you provided the ports. Let me put this in the message. PHP-S localhost, and just any ports. This on any folder is going to start a development environment for you. We'll see later on. So you have the PHP dev server to use. You have Docker, and then you have installing from the distro directly. This is there is this Andre repository that you're going to add to your Linux, and then you pull down PHP 7.4, 8.0, 8.1, 2, 3, etc., etc. But if I'm to recommend any two, I'm going to recommend using a PHP dev server and Docker. I really don't like installing dependencies on the bare metal. If you have PHP 8.4, it's really, really hard for those that have had this issue before. It's hard to switch to 8.3 or to switch to 8.1 on demand. If you have a product that runs 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, you can switch between them seamlessly, because there are a lot of commands you have to do on the terminal, exporting these or writing that before you can have each particular setup. But with Docker, everything just runs concurrently. Then for macOS, we have PHP Dev Server 2 that works. We have Docker 2 that works. We have Laragon, and then we have Laravel Valley. So Laravel Valley is almost like Herd. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just something Laravel had to do for us to utilize, make it easier to spin up the development server for Laravel. Yeah, so this is available on the docs. Just look into it, and it works only on macOS. So yeah, only macOS. Okay, let's go back here. So we have PHP Dev Server, Docker, Laravel, Valley. Now, having had the prerequisites or known the basics of what it is to get up running, how do we exactly create our first PHP project and then run it to show on the browser? I'm going to stop sharing the screen and then share my entire screen. Entire screen. Okay, beautiful. So I'll go in here. This is my code editor. For us, I think I had something. Yeah. Okay, everything goes on. Okay. So to set up your first PHP project, you just need something as simple as a folder and various files named in whatever way you choose. It's that simple. It's that very simple. So in this case, I created a new folder called Setting Up PHP Project. And if I start up this particular project using the PHP local environment, we can see it on our browser. So from what we learned, I'm running a Linux device. So I'll just do PHP -S localhost, and I'll provide it a port, say 5,000. Let me know if everything is legible. I had to increase my font sizes. Let me know if you can see the terminal properly. You can see the main screen is up properly. A thumbs up will do. Okay. Okay. So now that we have, this was covering. Okay, now that we have done PHP-S localhost 5,000, you can see here in the terminal it says PHP 8.3.6 development server started. For this particular session, I had to install PHP on my bare metal. So I just 5 minutes. I have someone at my door. Let me set that up. Thank you.
So I think while Elisha is at it, I just a quick one. If just a reminder once again that if you have any topic you want us to cover, even if we don't have no idea about the topic, at all, we'll try as much as possible to get people who have experience in that topic, or we go and learn it, and then we look at it together as well. So once again, if you have any topic you would like us to cover for PHP Talks, let us know. We would either do it or we'll look for the right personnel that would cover that topic for you. Thank you. So I think
Okay,
Kelisha is back. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to take care of someone at the door. All right. So, like I was saying, we now have a local environment running. So if we click on this to open on the browser, or localhost 5,000. Okay. So if you're familiar with this color, I'm not expecting it to be, but this is a PHP color. This purple, etc., etc. It's now saying the requested resource slash as root directory was not found on this server. What we've been able to achieve right now is we have been able to instantiate or initiate a PHP development environment using the PHP development server. What we need to do next to ensure something displays here is to create a file in our folder. Like if you see here, this folder is empty. There's nothing inside at all. And the PHP in the terminal, you see the request being received. It's logged here, 404. You know what 404 means, not found. So if we create a file, touch index and PHP, and then maybe let's just try that again and see what happens. You see, it changes from resource not found to a blank page. That's because our file is empty. Now, with PHP, there is a convention that if you don't provide the file name, the resource that you want to access, like this, let's say, for example, file name.php is going to get not found. If you don't specify this, it is going to look for any file called index.php in the folder. And if you can find it, it will display that file for you. In our case here, we created a file called index.php. which is why we no more see that no resource found, and we're now seeing an empty page. Now, how do we populate this empty page? We open the file, start out with our PHP. Oh, it's still too small. I found it's not very small. Let me increase the font size for this. Editor. Okay. So if we have something that says echo PHP talks, for those that were around last session we looked at echoes and print. Echo is just a way for you to output data back to either the terminal, browser, or whatever medium you're using to run this file. So if we go here now and then we refresh, we can see here PHP talks. So with this, we've been able to set up our very first PHP project. We've created a folder, we've started the PHP local environment, and we've outputted data on this. So we could use a few of the constructs we learned from the last time to try something out. We could say attendees is equal to, this is an array. We spoke about an array. An array is a multi-dimensional data structure. So we could say Daniel maps, say Itoro Jackson, I got that right? Say just vanilla. Let me go find it people's name. Okay, it's Jackson. We have Etienne or Sen Benjamin. Okay, so Etienne. So Jackson, we have Benjamin. So we can come here and then using the iterative structure we learned from last time, we'll say attendees as attendee, and we do something like just follow me. It's a bit rowdy, or let's try something. Well, here. Well, don't do this at home. Do this in the project. So let's see if this is going to work. Oh, it's not okay. Okay, people around. Okay. So each attendees as attendee. Okay. Oh, so we have attendees here. Then we come here and then we say equal LI attendee. So what we're trying to do now is to list out the names of all these people in our project. So yeah, beautiful. So we see that we've been able to bring in Daniel Maps, Jackson, Josephine Miller that we don't know, Etienne Sen, and Benjamin Kofu. This is just what it is. With this, we've been able to set up your very first PHP project. Starting from installing PHP itself, the different options that's available for you based on the operating system that you're using, starting up the development server that we used, why you would see resource not found when your server, when your folder is empty. Then we also looked at what folder gets displayed when you don't specify manually here. So in this case, maybe let's try saying attendees to PHP and just see what happens. No request, requested resource it's not found. Now, if we come here and then we say touch and the PHP that gets created, and we go here, echo, and here, we can go back here, and then when we reload, we see the details. So most time people create projects, for example, that has login, register, homepage. In that case, all you just need to do is create the files that match login.php, register.php, and maybe home page.php. So when you create these files like this, you can access them like this. So when you pass in a name here, it is, remember we initiated the server instance on port 5000 into a particular folder. So anything after that port is going to go through the folder and look for that file. The file must match homepage.php. So if we open here, we see a blank page because there's nothing. Now, in the case where, for example, we have everything is inside one folder now. So what if we have something like test, and then we create a folder in test. Inside media, we can say PHP equal I am in Ghana folder. Yeah, this works. So how do we now find out, step into this folder and access this file? Very simple. We just have to follow the way it is. Step into the folder test/media.php, and it works. You can step in as many folders as you want, but ideally it's always best to keep it one folder down. But it's not like a standard case. You can go in as deep as you want so far it matches the structure of your application. Yes. So we have test media. If we don't add this media here, it is going to look for a file called index.php inside this test folder. And when it does not find it, it throws it's not found. Beautiful. Okay. Having done that, at the earlier part, I mentioned that we have reusable codes where people write codes, make it open source, and then they just give us access to using it, which is where Composer came into play. So I'm going to try to install Composer in the project that we're handling now, and then see how to pull in maybe one package and just play around with it. I think the package that we can try out with is the date package, carbon. It's a PHP extension for dates. It helps you manage dates properly. Yeah. Here we go. Yes, introduction, carbon class, etc., etc., etc. So it's just a wrapper around how you manage dates, and it's battle tested. If you're using dates in your applications, you should look out to use this. I think Laravel by default uses carbon for created at and updated at, but in the cases where you have a manual date time field, you specify it in the column, you should try to cast it to date time so that it utilizes carbon. All right, so how do we pull in carbon into our project? Let me see if we have it here. No, we don't. So we can go to Apache. Here. Okay, this is where this is like the GitHub for packages. Yeah, it's like the GitHub for packages, the repository for all PHP packages. In the olden days, we had Perl, then we had PECL. It was also a way to share packages. It was a way to share, but they were sharing classes. So you go to the PECL, if I get it correctly, PECL or Perl. So you go to the repository, look at the class that you want, grab it, create the class locally, and paste it, then utilize. But Composer and packages just had a really smooth way of pulling in the projects, updating it when required, etc., etc., etc. So how do we install this? How do we install this? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Okay. That's not my lights just trying to go. So Composer require nest but carbon. We come here and then put this in this. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions. Okay. So what this does, oh, I'm not sharing WordPress. Okay. So what this does now is it's pulling in carbon, and carbon also has differing dependencies. It's depending on PSR clock, Symfony clock. A lot of us know Symfony. It was like it is the OG framework for PHP before Laragon came in. So we have polyfill MB strings, polyfill PHP 3. We don't know what most of them are. Symfony translation, Symfony translation contract, etc., etc., etc. Trying to download Carbon in. I hope that doesn't take so much time. Now, when we drag in dependencies like this, it creates a vendor folder for us. What the vendor folder is just a sub repository that holds all the dependencies that we're using. It needs the code locally. Remember, I said when we were using, not we, I wasn't programming at that time, when they were using Perl and somewhere around PECL, since I can't really pick out which one, I'll just keep mentioning both. What you did was the class is publicly available, you just have to copy it and put it in your own project and use. So the source code must be in your project too. So for this, it manages it differently. Like you don't have to manually copy and paste, but it has to pull it in and store it somewhere in the vendor folder. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I should have pulled this in prior to the meeting. Okay, so when this comes in, it creates a vendor. Oh, okay. I was in the test folder. That's why I'm getting this here. Okay, so it creates the vendor folder, and inside the vendor folder, you can see the third-party codes that it has put in. If you open it, it's still pulling things in. Maybe we can talk about Composer on a very different day. It's an amazing stuff. Something you should know about. Let's talk what's happening. Let's try that again. Oh, okay. That worked this time around. Okay, so we're in now. If you look into vendor, look into Carbon, you're going to see files. It's basically someone's code that you're using. Yes, someone sat down and wrote the code for you to utilize. So you see, most of the time, looking into these source codes even helps you write better codes. Just look into what really good people, really experienced people, how to write their codes, how to structure stuff, and then you just get to learn a lot out of it. I used to do the same for Laravel, just dig in and see what's happening under the hood. All right, so now how do we utilize these codes that we just got now? PHP has the concept of namespaces. That might be something we can treat some other time. Namespaces. So how to use this is to import in the namespace, bring in the class, and then make use of it. For most of it, we can do something like carbon now. This should not work. Let's try. And then see if we're going to get the current time outputted on our browser. I don't think it will. Beautiful. It's not. What's the error we're getting? Uncut error. Uncut error class carbon not found in stack trace. So what we need to do in this case is to include vendor autoload. Vendor autoload is, remember I said that carbon is a way that helps us manage third-party dependencies. Now, we have to bring in for most of us, we remember you doing something like this, require, include to bring in the content of a different class into the current class that we are handling. But then this gets very dirty real fast because you have to like import a lot of things and use them. So and you now have to start keeping track of what you imported where. But with Composer, you just need to include or require, anyone you choose, the auto load once, and it's going to be aware of every single third-party dependency, every single class that is in your project. And when you do something like use carbon, that's just all you need to do, and it brings the power of the whole class into your current file. So let's see if this is going to work. If it doesn't, we have to debug. Okay, so it works. So we can now see 2025 11 30 19 36 49. That's like 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, that's 7 minutes, 1 second. Then if we look at the documentation, is kind of carbon. Hold on. Okay, so we can see things that we can do. We could add a day. We could create a new carbon instance. We could pass the time zone. We could find the diff in hours. Let me see an example. You could say carbon noun. It's a format diff for humans. Yeah, let's do this. So see what that will look like. Beautiful. So it formats differently. It's saying 0 seconds because we're using noun. So if we do something like start of day, that's like beginning of today, and then D for humans, we could get something better. 19 hours ago. So it has these different methods you can use for those that are familiar with object-oriented programming. So now when you're doing your project, you don't need to start implementing date stuff separately when you already have carbon. Just need to pull it in using Composer, and it works smoothly for you. This is something you will surely use in your project. If you're using a framework, they are doing this already for you. Do I have a project I can pull up? Okay, let me pull this up. This is a Laragon application I worked on at some time. So we know that when you're working with a Laragon application, the entry point is public index. So let's look at this. Good. So at this point, you can see that they are requiring vendor autoload. So every framework would utilize this autoload. And if you look at the vendor directory, this is a whole lot of dependencies that we have that makes the project work, so that in our codes, we could do something like this. Use. So when we say use blah, 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 it imports the whole power of whatever is inside this file to us. Split right? Close this, open this. So what we have here is like saying, copy everything here and bring it here so that we can use it here. So that's what Composer helps us. What Composer helps us with. It helps you share your codes, interact with your classes in a very seamless manner. What else is remaining that we haven't spoken about? Okay. Okay, we've spoken about external dependencies. So Carbon is what helps play around with time. We also have Guzzle. Guzzle is a cleaner, object-oriented way to call third-party APIs. For most of us, we know call. We know about PHP call. Yep, we know about this, but then this is what's is it functional? No. This is like it's step by step, forgotten programming paradigm. It's not functional. There's some other one for object oriented. Is it functional? Should be functional. So this is step by step, like the call, close, copy, etc. Many lines of code. But just with Guzzle gets it like cleans up all the complexities. You could pull it in should you want. Just composer require Guzzle something to bring it in. So this is now how you use external dependencies in your codes. You can also, at the end of writing your software, push it out as a third-party package. You can also push it out so that someone else can pull it in. Let me open my GitHub now and see. I think I have one stuff that I use. Oh, for some reason, people decided to fight outside, so they have a lot of strength. I had to go shut the door. GitHub. Okay. Give me repositories. Then we find. Give me a stuff. Okay, is it paper? Paper, yeah. Beautiful. So this is something I played around just a bit, writing a very small package. I think I published it. I can't remember, but with this now, someone can also pull in this bit of code I did. How many 6 years ago? Someone can pull this in. It's going to be outdated. It's going to be very, very outdated. I was so proud to say part of Elisha Ukpong. Nice. Yeah, this is config, PayPal config. So, you could just write whatever code you want and then share it for some other persons to also utilize. You have all the namespace I spoke about, the use, all constructor, blah, blah, blah. So someone can now just pull in this amount of work I have done and use the methods I have exposed, the APIs I have exposed, without having to redo it. It doesn't have to make so much sense. You just put it out there for the fun of it. You reuse it in something else, then we use Composer and see how it works. That's the fun part of it. So I think after this, yeah. So what are the next steps? Let me just go back to reiterate what we have done. The objective was for you to install PHP, create a project, run a server, and start coding. We've also dabbled a bit into looking at third-party dependencies that can make our work better, very, 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 very better. And then we also look at making our work available for others as a third-party, code-based third-party work, however you want to term it, where they can pull in and just utilize the work we've done. I mean, most of the solutions we use daily thrives on the back-breaking work of a few people doing open source work. One person in our community, that's two people in our community that are doing so much for this is Stephen Jude. He has a lot of filament packages that I have used at work, and it has saved me a lot of times. I've also contributed to the packages too, two-factor authentication for filament I have. Then we also have Kieran, that's doing really amazing work with PHP, etc., etc., etc. So we've looked at what are the options available to set up on Windows, on Linux, on Mac OS. We've created our very first project. We've outputted our names. We've looked at how we can bring in a third-party package to our application. That was Carbon. We've also looked at the concept of composers, vendor files, why we should import auto loads. We've looked at Laravel and see that it also uses the same thing. So the next steps now will be just to practice. Pick up, create a new folder, pull up your development environment, and just type away. Back in the day, we were always confused about what should I work on, what should I build, what should I try out. But in more recent time, there is so much ideas around what you can build, and most of them are also chunked down. Like there's a step-by-step approach to building these things. Povilas, Laravel Daily, he has a repo that outlines the things you should build when you're starting out, just to give you direction on what to build. We also have ChatGPT. It's free. You could just ask it to generate a few project ideas for someone starting out or whatever your experience level is, and it gives you this project, and you start just getting your hands dirty. Now, you might be saying, what does this really benefit me for someone that's a little bit more experienced? For most of us that are using frameworks, we don't really understand what happens under the hood that makes most of this framework work. Things like routing. How does routing actually work? How does it convert the things that you display, that you put in the route, the PHP file, and then map them to endpoints on the browser? How does it shed off the .php at the end of the file, but still found that files and displays it? How does it structure my application such that if I have multi folders, it still digs in and finds it out? That's where most of these bland PHP core sessions help you, just to add a bit of ideas to certain things, etc., etc., etc. So ask more questions. The group is really open and welcoming. Ask your questions. You can practice more. Take an idea. For example, you could pick routing. We're talking about routing. Pick routing from Laravel and write a core PHP implementation just to understand what it is. You could pick the concept of middlewares and see how to implement middlewares on your core PHP project. And then these sort of sessions would help, like what you pull in, at what point, what's the composer, what's the vendor file, how to bring this in. That actually helps like tie these things together. Then join more sessions for next month, December, closing of the year. We'll most likely have like 2 more intermediate to advanced sessions so that we can balance it out. Since this month we did a bit more introduction, where we looked at what PHP is, your first PHP project. We could build up from here. What I really love was to look into the discussion we had on the group, which is authentication, authorization, policies, gates, middlewares, etc., etc. This would be more of a proper project and looking at it a lot. So that is really everything for this session, and I really want to hope that you have been able to grasp one thing or 2 things. For those starting out playing, and for those that are already getting their hands dirty, you've also been able to pick out 1 or 2 things that you're going to explore in your spare time and improve on your knowledge of PHP. Thank you so much for listening for the past 49 minutes to me talk and talk again. Thank you very much. Daniel, I think you have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Elisha. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining tonight's session. I really do hope that you've learned a thing or 2 in this session, and moving forward, we'll try as much as possible to also inculcate, bring up intermediate sessions as well and advanced level sessions as well. So this video is still recorded. and we will definitely post it on YouTube as well with the first video on the introduction to PHP series. So once again, thank you very much for joining tonight's session. I really do hope you have a great weekend, and see you next month. Bye.